Want to learn 3 new ways to control your CNC machine? Then you're in the right place. Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of James Dean Designs. If you're new to the channel and love CNC, make sure you hit that subscribe button in the corner to get all the latest tutorials and reviews. In today's episode, we're going to be taking a look at 3 ways to control your CNC machine that you may not be aware of, ultimately to make your life easier. And everything we're going to do today is fairly simple to set up, so it's an option for both novice users and advanced users. There's nothing like typing out code to do, so it is definitely something to consider. Now, the 3 options we're looking at today: first, we're going to take a look at using our keyboard to do it. Set up some hotkeys so that as we press certain buttons, it will perform basic functions such as jogging the machine about. Then after that, we're going to move on to doing a similar thing but with our mobile phone. We're going to have all the jog functions on screen so we can control it whilst we're in front of it, or even if we're in another room. I'm not sure why you would want to control it from another room, but it is an option that we can do. Third, and probably the coolest looking one, is doing it with a gamepad. So it doesn't matter if it's wired, wireless, whether it's a PlayStation, Xbox gamepad. It's about having those functions set up on this, so when you move the different control sticks, the CNC machine moves at the same time. Now, why would you want to set up these methods when you've already got everything on screen? Well, ultimately, it's very rare your screen is directly next to your piece of material or your CNC machine. Even with a laptop, it's normally at the side, and you end up flicking back and forth when you're changing settings, adjusting the distance that you need to jog things about. So the whole purpose of this really is to not have to keep worrying about looking at our screen every time we're trying to move something about. And as I say, just make our life easier. Now, we're going to be doing all of this within UGS. There are probably other pieces of software that are capable of doing it, but UGS is my preferred control software, so we're going to be doing it in that. And let's move over to UGS now and get started with the keyboard first and get some hotkeys set up. So I've already got UGS open and my machine is connected. However, the power is turned off to it, so you can't hear the fan rumbling on in the background. However, it doesn't matter whether your machine is connected or not. You can do it just from UGS being open. So the first thing we're going to do is come up to Tools and then come down to Options. Now you can see straight away this is opened already on Keymap. Yours may open on the General tab or another one, but if we come over to Keymap, and this is where we want to work in. Now it does exactly what it says up here. It is a map of the different keys on our keyboard, and you'll probably have a standard set load in by default. Now I've just scrolled to the top of the list, and what we can see is this list is very long. If I drag this down, it goes on for quite a while with all of the different actions that we can control. Now some of these you will be familiar with already. So for example, copy Control plus C. This is a command we use quite often within our design software, and certainly something you'll probably already be familiar with. And there are lots of others, as you can already see, in place. Now for the most part these are useful, but they're not what we're interested in today. We want to look at some of the basic commands that we're used to doing within UGS to make our life easier. So we're going to scroll down a bit, and as we come down we start to get to this jog section in the list. And if I come down just a little bit further, we can start to see jog X plus, jog X plus, Y plus. Now these are all the different commands that are going on in the jog controller over here, and this is where we're going to start in order to make our life much easier. Now in order to set a hotkey, you just double click into the gap at the side of the command you're trying to edit. So for example, jog plus, we're going to click into this box at the right of it, double click, and we can now edit and put a command in there. Now as soon as you press a key on the keyboard, it will think that is the key that you're trying to use. So don't try and type anything, literally touch the key that you want to use. So for example, X plus is basically moving everything over to the right. So what we're going to do now is press Shift right. We can see that it's picked the 2 keys up that I pressed. Now if we go to click out of it, we will get this warning message, and basically what it is saying is there is an action somewhere else using the same command that we are trying to use. Now this is where you have to do the programming to what you would like. So for example, moving the x-axis to the right, to me makes sense to leave that as Shift right, and then so on for the other commands. So to bring it back left, Shift left, to take it forward, Shift forward. However, as you can see, some of these commands are already taken by other things. Now this is not a command that I use at all within UGS, so I'm happy for it to be removed and it to use the new keys that I have set. So in this case I'm going to click yes. And we will see it is saved the command that I've just put in to go with that action. Now we'll come down to the X minus, so this is the left, and we'll do the same again. Double click in and press shift left. And then we're going to click out of it again to save it, and we get the same warning message. There is another action using this command. Again, I would rather keep shift command to move shift left to move it left than using this extended selection backwards. So I'm going to click yes and save it to that command. Now it really is personal preference whatever you make these shortcuts, but it needs to be something that logically makes sense to you and something that you can also remember. Now obviously you can print these commands out or write them down and keep them somewhere near your machine, but if you make it something logical, then it's just obviously it's going to save you having to think too much every time you go to use the keyboard. Now we could go on and do some others. For the time being I'm just going to leave these two as they are and do a quick demonstration. So I'm going to click OK. I'll quickly turn the power back onto my CNC so you'll hear the fan kicking in the background. Now just to test the theory of what we've just done, you can see my mouse is over the visualizer, so I'm not hovering over the jog controls. And what I'll now do is bring the keyboard in front of the camera, and if I press shift and right and shift and left, so we can see those commands are working as expected. But as I say, that is something basic, and we can do much more with the keyboard shortcuts. So we're going to come up to tools and we're going to go to options and key map again. Now if I scroll up slightly from where we are at the moment, we can see a couple of more jog actions, and we've got divide feed rate by 10 and we've got multiply feed rate by 10. So one of the issues is obviously as you keep going back and forth and trying to get your machine to the correct point, you normally come down from say like 100mm down to 10mm, then down to 1mm. And if we had to keep coming back to the screen to do this, well then it would kind of defeat the point of creating one of these more accessible routes to move the machine about. So what we're going to do is come to the divide XY step size by 10, and we're going to double click into there. And for this I'm going to press shift plus minus to reduce the step size of the XY axis. Now we're going to go to the same but in the multiply section, double click into there, and we're going to click on the plus. So we've got shift minus and shift plus, or shift add as it shows here. Now we're going to save those again. We're going to click apply and click OK. Now what we can see over here is we've got the step size is XY as 100. So again, if I press shift and left, we can see that's moved over 100mm. Now if I press shift and minus, what you'll just see is the step size on screen went from 100 down to 10, and if I press shift left again, just moves 10mm. If I do that again, brings it down to 1mm, and do that. Now what we can do is take them back up. So we'll press shift and plus. It's gone up to 10mm, so shift right. And shift plus again up to 100mm, shift right. So what you can see straight away is that we can do a lot of controls with the keyboard shortcuts. Now if I just open the key map back up again. Now as I say, there are lots of options to control in here, such as the X and Y step size, the Z step size between millimeters and inches. Not only can you control the basics forwards and backs with the plus and the minuses, you've also got the diagonal options to choose from as well, wherever you have like the X and Y listed together. This is the diagonals sitting around the edge of the jog control. You've also got lots of other choices as well, such as resetting your zeros, whether that is the X, Y, Z individually, resetting the whole zero. As I say, lots of choices in this menu if you scroll through and have a look. Further down as well, we've also got feed and speed overrides in case you want to speed anything up. Now I say everything available in here is available in the menu system itself, so it's really just a case of setting those shortcuts and remembering which ones you have assigned to them. I will also quickly touch on the manage profile. So for example, you can create a profile, be able to share it with other people. You can also import and export, so the different profiles that you want. The net being is just the default one that isn't anything I've created, but you can create your own, say share them with others, or make a backup of it should you ever lose need to reinstall UGS. So it can be quite useful to do that once you've gone through the whole process of creating whatever shortcut you want. Create an export of it and then save it somewhere safe. One thing that I forgot to mention is the keyboard symbol in the middle of the jog control. Now this is effectively to turn the controls on and off. Now the reason this is important, you may go to do a keyboard shortcut and notice that it's not working, so you may have to turn this on in order to make your keyboard controls active. Equally, you can turn it off if you're doing something else with the keyboard and you don't want the shortcuts interacting or confusing with anything else. For example, if you're typing out a command line in GRBL, you may want to turn off the keyboard shortcuts to save any conflict going on there. So let's move on from the keyboard and see about controlling things with our mobile phone. Now I've tested this on iPhones, Androids, and pretty much any modern mobile phone should be capable of doing this. The only stipulation is your PC or laptop that you're using to control your CNC machine will either need an internet connection or some sort of local Wi-Fi network connection. The reason being is obviously you need that signal to control with your mobile phone in order to do it. So let's move over to UGS and see about getting this set up on our mobile phone. So we're back in UGS now and I'm looking at the Fox Alien machine. I've deliberately left everything disconnected and I will explain why shortly. Now in order to control this with your mobile phone, as mentioned, you will need a Wi-Fi network or something going on in order to allow your PC and phone effectively to communicate one way or another. Now in order to get everything to display on your mobile phone, we come up to machine and we come down to pendant. You'll get an image display like this. Essentially, this is a QR code that you can scan with the camera on your phone. If for any reason your phone cannot scan QR codes, then it gives you the web address to type in manually. So what I'll do now is just put the camera in front of the code and it brings up a message like this, which I'll try and show you on screen. And once you click on that, it will then take you through to a platform which just looks like the connection menu in UGS. We can see at the top that we've got the GRBL, we've then got COM5, obviously the COM port, and the baud rate. Now we can see live on screen what is going on. So if I just remove the message off the main screen, sorry this is slightly awkward trying to manage multiple screens on different cameras. Now what can happen is if I click connect and watch the live screen at the same time, give it a second, and everything comes to life and we can basically see the same information across both screens. In essence, what you're seeing on your mobile phone is everything you can control within UGS. So we can see straight away we've got the kill alarm coming up at the top, which is the unlock signal. So if we come down to kill alarm, as I say, kill alarm is unlock, same thing. And we can now continue to use the actual machine. Everything has been unlocked. So obviously you've got all your basic command functions going on here, like the reset 0. And then if I come out to the jog tab, you can see all the basic command jogs that we've got in UGS. So for example, if I scroll down, we've got the XY step at 100mm. So if I press left, see in the background it moving, right, up and down. So yeah, you basically got all the controls within UGS but at the disposal of your mobile phone. So if you really want to get in close and try and set the 0 for something, you don't need to keep looking back at your screen. You can literally put your mobile phone right next to the machine and control everything. You can even send files from here as well, so you can do it directly from your mobile phone if you choose. You can upload a file and then obviously send it to run and keep an eye on things. Now you may remember my previous video where I set up a macro. If I go to macro, we can still see it's carried over the same macro project as well. So as I say, everything in UGS you can control, but straight from your mobile phone. And then when you're done at the end, we can just come back and click disconnect, and it will disconnect it from the machine, and we're back to the start. So I wasn't kidding at the start when I said it's easy to set up. That's literally accessing an address from your phone in order to see the controls. Now let's move on to the gamepad. One of the reasons I really love this method is gamepads have these toggle buttons which are about sensitivity, and that also applies to the CNC machines as well. So the softer we press this, the slower the CNC machine will move. The harder we press it, the faster the CNC machine will move. So it saves having to keep going back between the screen and adjusting like like the unit measurements for how far you want it to travel. We can just do everything nice and easy with these toggle buttons. Now, as I said at the start, it doesn't matter if it's wired or wireless. They should all work, as long as obviously you've got the right setup on your machine to work with a wireless controller. I'm going to be using a wired one for today. What does make a difference is the type of controller. So I originally tried to use something like this just as a test, and it would not work at all. It was only these more advanced types of controllers that worked. I'll put links in the description area below to some of the ones that should work. If you're an IT gamer type person, let me know in the comment section why one might work and not the other. But yeah, this is the one I've decided to use. So let's move over to UGS and have a play about with using this. So once again, we're back in UGS and connected up to the Prover XL. Now, to use a gamepad, obviously the first thing you need to do is get it connected to your PC. Today we're going to be using a wired gamepad. So what I'm simply going to do is plug the USB cable into a USB port, and all being well, we should get a message pop up saying that it's installing it. There we are. You should be able to see that on screen. Give it a second to install the device, and it should get a message popping up saying everything is now complete. There we are. So the controller is good to go. Now, obviously, I can't accommodate for every different controller out there, but if you do have issues, obviously, try asking on some of the Facebook groups, and I'm sure you'll get the answers that you need. So the first thing we're going to do is come up to the Tools menu and down to Options. Now, we can see on the far right hand side, we've got this UGS menu that it's already opened with it. And the next thing we need to do is go to the joystick menu. Now, if yours is not activated already, make sure you turn Activate Joystick on, and obviously this allows you to use it. Now, what we can see already is there is a lot of pre-assigned buttons with actions next to them. This is a very similar principle to what we did with the keyboard. We are assigning actions to certain buttons or functions, and we can see straight away, like we've got A equals jog Z minus, so bring the Z axis down. B is assigned to the macro that I've got installed on this UGS setup, and we've got other controls further down here. Now, if I drag this down, we should see the full list of options. And we can see some fairly obvious things are by default. So pad up equals Y plus. Now, with this joystick that I am using, it has the pad and it also has the analog sticks. So using the pad direction, the simple up, down, left, right, will essentially work the same way as if you are using the jog control in UGS. However, if you are using the analog sticks, it will treat them slightly differently because it is variable. If we take a closer look at the gamepad that I'm using, it's more of a PlayStation setup. So we've got the X, triangle, circle and square. So if we're trying to align it to something like we have on screen where we have the A, B, X, Y, it may not be obvious what button correlates to which on the gamepad. So there is an easy way to do this. Well, if we simply just press the button, keep an eye on the UGS screen, we'll see that each one lights up accordingly. So you can clearly identify which button is active in relation to which command it's going to carry out. Same as the L1, 2 buttons. There we are, L1, L1, R1, and the D-pad. We've got the up, down, left, and the right. If we could see it on screen. If I scroll down a bit, just to clarify, there we are. So we've got the up, down, left, and right. Similar with the analog, if I come all the way back to the bottom, clearly not enough hands to do this when trying to operate everything at the same time. But if we move the analog stick left and right, and the right stick, we can see that that is highlighting up. So basically what we can clearly do is highlight each button in relation to what is actually going on with the function we need to carry out. Now, for the most part, a lot of the basic controls that set up by default are going to be appropriate for you, such as the pad up, pad downs. These are all relevant to the jog controls, and then the analog sticks. But what we can do as well, for example, let's say we wanted to make the L1 button do a certain command. We can click on the box and it will give us the menus based on the top of the system where we can select from different type of options that we've got to control things from. Let's say menus that you're already familiar with, such as the overrides, the feed rate, and then the programming, such as your basic functions of moving up and down. Now, I mentioned earlier when doing the keyboard settings, the multiply and the divide for the step size. So let's go with that one. We're going to want the L L1 to multiply by 10 on the X and Y, and we're going to want the R1 to do the same thing but with the divide. So we'll divide by 10 on the X and Y. And at the moment we'll click OK, we'll click apply and then OK for everything to apply on the joystick. So let's put this into practice. So we just know that this was set up with some basic functions. The D control should be the standard jog function. So if I press right, move it across 100 millimeters, and left to bring it back. So we know that is all working correctly. Now we said we wanted the L1 and the L2 to adjust the step sizes. So if we press the L1, we'll see that's taking it up to 1000 millimeters. Obviously I don't want this to travel 1000 millimeters because the bed's not big enough. But if we press R1 and bring it back down to 100 and then down to 10, we can move it across smaller increments, down to 1 millimeter, smaller still, and even down to 0.1. So we can really fine tune this if we want to, and we can bring it all the way back up to 100 millimeters and keep moving as we need to. So in essence, everything that we could do on the keyboard, except there is the added benefit of the analog buttons, and this is easy enough to show you. Obviously it will be quite noisy as the machine is running doing this, but if we start to move this across slowly to the left, you can just hear that juttering moving in micro increments. But then if I really pull it across to the left, speeds up, and do it exactly the same the other way, and more, and all the way up to full speed, and the same if we pull it towards us and up to full speed. So that is the real advantage of using the analog controls or the joystick on this, is that you've got the function of moving these about all at the same time in small or large increments without having to keep constantly pressing the D-pad. And a bit like with the keyboard, it is completely up to you how you program this and the functions, but as always, make a note of the buttons that you do set. Obviously you can always go back into the menu within UGS just to memorize what it is that you have set, but it's certainly going to make life much easier using this to control things rather than having to keep looking at the screen and then coming back. And just to show you that it can be done with a wireless controller as well, this is off my old Xbox 360. It can be a bit temperamental, but I have got it connected to the PC, and we can see it does exactly the same. Perfect. So again, just making our life that much easier, and that we don't even need a wire in order to control the CNC. So as promised at the start, 3 methods for controlling your CNC without having to use the on-screen control functions. Hope you found them useful. What was your favourite? I think for me it's probably the gamepad. I love the sensitivity on the toggle buttons where we can move things fast or slow depending on how we use the controller. Now that is everything for this episode. I hope you found it useful. If you did, as always, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps the channel and the videos. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, final thanks goes to my patrons. I really appreciate the support. I'll see everyone on the next episode.